Okay, this video I'm going to show you how to use free tools on the internet to create a quick template for a small web page or website rather. I'm going to start on github.com. If you're taking a class with me, you probably already have an account. Hopefully you already have an account. So if you visit github.com, be sure to sign in. I'm going to use the one that I'm creating this video for. I'm on IMED1416. That's my password. I'm signing in, and I'll be coming back to this page to upload the page when I get to a stopping point. I'm going to create a new tab, or rather just open a new tab, and what I'm working on is on a template for a small website for Web Design 1. And I know a couple of things about it. I don't need it to be very fancy. I just need to have a couple of columns that I can play with and work with, and the columns need to have all the semantic elements that will allow me to create a somewhat robust, if not complete, web page. So the first thing I'm going to look for, and I'm doing this with Google search, or rather DuckDuckGo, which is the same thing with less advertising. I'm going to search for W3 schools, and that's just one word, W3 schools, and I'm going to look for a two-column layout and press enter. How to create two-column layouts from W3 schools. W3 schools have been around for a while. They've contributed lots of learning material, and they allow you to use this all for free. So I'm going to scroll down, and basically I'm looking for this example right here, two unequal columns, which is what I want. I'm going to click on the Try It Yourself button, which will then give me the code that's needed to create two unequal columns, and then it shows me right here to the right what that's going to look like. And it's not a lot of code, so I'm going to click on the left side anywhere, just click once, and then press Control A. That selects all of this text. And then copy all this text. You can press Control C or right click and select copy. The software in Windows that I'm going to be using, I'd rather use something else, but because this is for whatever is freely available in our computers, I'm going to click on the Windows menu and type in Notepad and click on that to open it. Now that I have it open, I have an untitled document open. I'm going to right click and paste the text that I just copied, and let me take a look at it. It's HTML5. That's a doc type at the very top. I'm going to put in a space right after that. I wish I were using something else, because then I could have line numbers and I could reference where I am a little bit better for you, but I'll stick with this one. HTML is the beginning, and then we have code for the head. This is going to be for whatever screen we're using, and here it's going to be very important. I'm going to be coming back to the styling a lot. I'm going to scroll down and see what we have as far as the CSS that's already provided for us. Create two unequal columns. It's got some, because this is a sample, and you saw earlier that they're just showing us what these columns might look like with a gray box. We don't necessarily need this box, the height of 300 px. I'm going to delete that text. And I know now that I have a column CSS tag, or rather a class, and another class called left and another class called right. It's at 25 and 75%. I'm going to change these values to 30 and 70. They should always add up to 100. But that's what I'm going to be working with, a 30 and 70. So I want the column on the left that's 30% of the space, and the space on the right that's 70%. I'm going to leave that code alone. I'm going to keep on going down here, have a header that says two unequal columns, and then I have a row that is going to be our main element here. So I'll go back to my CSS, and I'm going to save this just so that I know that I have it. I'm going to File, Save, and I'm saving this stuff on my desktop, and I'm going to put it in a folder called HTML. If you don't have an HTML folder, be sure to create a new folder and save it on that. If you'd rather use a different name, just make sure that's something you know that you can find easily. Inside the HTML folder, I'm going to save this first file as index.html, and I need to type .html. Save as type, ignore the .txt, and just click on save. So now I have an index.html file that if I were to go back to my browser, and I'm using Chrome, I'm going to press Ctrl O to open. I'm already in the HTML folder. I'm going to just go onto the desktop and look for it again here, HTML, and then there's index.html, and I'm going to open it. So I see that I have basically the same design that's available at W3 Schools. I have a header that says 2 unequal columns, a column 1 and a column 2 that are 30% on the left, 70% on the right, and then just some sample text. It's not as tall as it was originally because I took off the 300 pixels height. I'm going to return to my notepad, and inside the notepad I'm going to make some changes, or actually just add in some coding. Because this is an HTML5 document, I want to use semantic tags. I'm going to look once again for my style. I'm not going to mess with this asterisk, which says that the box sizing is border box. That's a universal change. I have now the CSS that creates the 2 unequal columns, so I'm pretty much going to leave that part of it alone. I'm going to leave this part alone as well. It clear floats after the columns, so it's important to keep. I'm going to find the end of the style tag, and I'm going to press enter. I keep on pressing enter just so that I can see where I am. Since I don't have line numbers, I can see the spaces and maybe hopefully get to the text that I'm looking for a little bit faster. I talked about HTML5 semantic elements, so I know that this page has somewhat of a header. It's got some sort of a main section, and it's got a couple of articles that could fit in here, and I'll definitely want a footer at the bottom, so I'm going to start to add those semantic tags. At the beginning of the document, which is where it starts to display, it's going to be where the body begins. Right after the body, and rather right before the H2, I'm going to declare this to be a header. So I'm opening up a bracket, typing in header, and then after the H2, which should reside inside of that header, I'm going to close it, /header. And let me spell it correctly, otherwise nothing happens. Following the header, I have the row division. Rather than saying division, since I'm using semantic tags, I'm going to replace div with section. I think of sections and articles as I would in an old newspaper, that there are sections that have articles inside of them. However, that's up to you if you want to have sections inside of articles or not. In this example, though, sections will be the surrounding area, articles will be inside. I'll keep the class as row so that it displays the same. I see that then I have a division class that's column left, that's the left column. So this division, I'm going to replace that with a semantic tag of article, because that's going to be the article on the left, which has a class of column left. Currently it's got this background color that I'm going to change later. It's got a column 1 text and some additional text, and then it closes /div. Since I replaced it with article, make sure that you spell your tags correctly, unlike me. I misspelled article there, article. And then do the same for the next division, because this is basically the second article, the one on the right. Article opens up with a class of column right, and then when the div closes, this will now be where the article closes. And since we're done with these two articles, I'm going to add a couple of spaces just to see where I am and see what I'm missing. I'm missing the closing section right after the last article, and that should be a section that closes, and then the body closes, and then the page closes. The HTML is over. I'm going to save where I am, file, save. I'm going to go back to the browser and reload, and nothing should have changed other than what's happening behind the scenes, that is in the page source. I can see that my style is now compliant with HTML5 semantic tags, that I have a header that opens and closes, that I have a section that opens and closes, and that inside the section there's going to be some articles. I'll close that and return to my editor. Before I continue, I know that I'm also going to want a footer at the bottom of this page. So after the section finishes, I'm going to open up a footer tag and then just close it right away. Inside of here, for now at least, I'm going to put in the copyright tag. So that's I'll put it inside a paragraph. Let me open up a paragraph, get ampersand copy, semicolon, put in a year, and then just who's making this. Internet Development Technology Title Central, and I'll close that paragraph. I'm going to save again. If you don't see me click File Save, hopefully I'm typing Control S. I'll return to my index, and I now have a very rudimentary basic page started. One other thing that I might want to do before I continue with this is that I'm going to find where the body starts. And here, rather than adding a CSS, I may regret this later, but at least for now, I'm just going to add a style that says that it's equal to the max width being 900 pixels. So I only want to display 900 pixels, semicolon. And then give it an auto margin all around, so that it centers all around. Margin is auto, semicolon. And close the styling with the quotes. Make sure that you spell everything correctly. If I misspell anything, I'll regret it. File, save, and return to index and reload. So now I have my barely started template. It's only 900 pixels across. It's got 2 columns, and I'm ready to continue because I know that later I'm going to want a navigation element somewhere in the page. Let me close some of these other tabs that I have open and open up a new one. I'm going to search for W3 Schools horizontal navigation. And the first thing that pops is CSS navigation bar, W3 Schools. That's what I want. I'll go here. There's lots of samples. Make sure that you find the one that actually says horizontal on it. And it's down here. I did a search within the page. Horizontal navigation bar. And it's giving me some example right away. It doesn't have much code, but click on Try It Yourself. They'll show you that this is not what I want actually. I want to go to the next one, the horizontal navigation bar with actual styling on it. Horizontal navigation bar examples. So this one is a little bit more advanced. And this one, the one that's got the green home because it's got an active and current navigation link, that's the one that I want actually. So I'll click on that and you'll see that it's a pretty neat navigation bar. I'm going to, rather than selecting all, I'm going to find where the style begins, right here on UL, and I'm going to copy all of this text all the way to the end of the style. So just before the style ends, in the last bracket ends here, I'm going to right click and copy that selected text, go back to my editor, which is Notepad, and inside of my styling, style begins here, I'm going to find the end of the style currently there before the head starts. I'll paste, or rather the head ends, I'm going to paste what I just copied from the other page and see that I have all the CSS code that's needed for the navigation bar. I'll return to that W3 Schools page because although I have the CSS, I still need the HTML, and that is inside of the body tag. They open up an another list. That's how this works. It's basically all these bullet items. My website will only have 3 pages. This one has 4 links, and that's fine. I'll just copy this and make the changes in my page. In my page currently, I know that I have this index page that's got this header, then it's got this section, and it's got a footer. For this sample, I want it to be between the header and the section, so that's what I'll do. I'll find the header and where it ends, and before section begins, I'm going to type in a navigation semantic element. So it's just open bracket nav and then open bracket /nav again, and in between that tag I'm going to paste what I just copied. And I have an active class that's going to be applied currently on this page as the home page. The home page is going to be this page, the index page. I don't know that I necessarily need a news page for my site. I'm only looking for 3 pages. Definitely have an index page, have a contact page, and an about page. While I'm at it and I'm here at this code, I'm going to change these hashtags. This is currently only navigating throughout one single page as a sample. So I'm going to replace hashtag home with index.html. All of these files, once they're created, will be in the same directory. So for the next one, for contact, I'll delete everything inside of the quotes and replace that text with contact.html. Be sure to use no spaces inside the names of the files. Make sure that you use lowercase. It's not needed, but if you always use lowercase, hopefully you'll be able to find them right away. You won't be mistyping them because you're putting in additional caps. For the last page, it'll be called about.html. I'll save this and see what it looks like. I don't have those other 2 pages, so I expect an error if I click on anything. I do right click, however, and I see that I have home and contact and about, and you'll notice how the CSS is already working. At least for the home page is active. If I click on contact, there's the error I was expecting because there is no contact page. Before I create those other pages, I'm going to get a font so that it doesn't just use this Times New Roman, the standard default font. I'm going to travel on a new link, or rather a new panel. Click on my search and look for Google Fonts. And that's the first thing that pops up, is Google Fonts. And I'm going to be using a standard font. I want to use a sans serif, something without feet, something that doesn't look like the Times New Roman. So in categories, I'm going to click on serif to unselected, unselect display, unselect handwriting, and unselect monospace. So now I have an open sans, which is actually what I wanted to use. You can use whatever font you like. Make sure that it's readable and that it fits the design you're working with. I'm going to click on plus to select that font. One family selected, I'll click on that, and they tell me to get this font working on my page that I should copy this code into the head. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to highlight the link, copy. This is linking to the Google APIs page. So if I go back to my Notepad design, inside of the head, at the very beginning, I'll just tell it right after it selects the viewport to link to the fonts. And I also need to copy this text, specify in CSS. I'll right click and copy, come back to my Notepad, and in the code, since I already have styling for CSS, etc., I know that I want this to be applied everywhere in the body. So I could do this, and like I said earlier, I might regret this later, but at least for now, I have this additional styling on the body, style max width is 900, the margin is auto, semicolon. Make sure that if you add any elements that they're separated by semicolons. So what I just copied, font family open sans serif semicolon, is now there, and I'll save this, file save, and see what it's looking like now. If I can find the page, it's right here. Reload, and now my index page has the two unequal columns header. It's got a home, contact, and about navigation bar. It's got the two columns, and then it's got this footer. You'll notice that now the font is different. It's sans serif. It looks more like an Arial. It's open sans. Before I move on to the big design, which is not a lot of design, this is going to be a Pi Emporium page eventually, but I need to complete my template because I still have pages that don't exist and don't work. So I'll click back on my notepad, and now that I've added the fonts, I'm going to get a little fancy, I guess, with the footer. I want it to be centered. So inside of my style, which begins way up here and ends where its slash style is placed, before it ends, I'm going to add a new class that's going to be called center. And it's dot center, open bracket, go to the next line, and I'll say that the text align, text hyphen, line colon should be center. Semicolon to finish that, and then close the bracket. Since this I want to apply to the footer, I can apply the class right after footer word. Footer class will be enter, and save that. Let's see if that's doing anything, and yes, it's applying the center class to that particular paragraph. So now that I have that, I just want to put in the links, the correct links for the pages. And actually I already have the links. I did put in href, contact, and about.html. They just don't exist yet. So since I have index.html open, and the next one should be contact, I'm going to file and tell it to save so I don't lose what I've just done. File, save as, and I want to name this file contact.html and save it in the same folder as index. It's going to show me that index is already there, and now I have contact.html. I'll save that. Because this is the contact.html, the class active code should be copied, or actually cut, and put just before contact.html is open. That way this will be the active code applied. I'm going to save one more time, file, save, and then file, save as, and I now need an about.html page. I'll name this one about.html. I click on all files just so that it shows me what's in there, and I'll save, and I'll have index, contact, and an about page. I'll save that, go back to my browser, reload. I have home. Click on contact. I'm now on contact.html, and I click on about, and I'm on about.html. I'll go back and forth, and you'll notice that the links work on at least on the home and contact, but not on the about, the active page, because I did not change it. I'll go back to my notepad. I'm on the about page, and this class active now needs to be cut from the contact page and added just before the about page. Press Ctrl V to paste and save this. I'll reload the page on the browser, and now I see that about, when it's active, it's green, contact, it's green, about, and I can jump back and forth in between all of these pages. So I now have a working template for this web page. On the next video, I'll show you how to begin to actually make it look like the website that is needed for the final assignment of the Web 1 class.